Hello and welcome to Nikolay's genetics lessons, and today we are going to talk about how to memorize abstract numbers. For example, how to memorize such table like this under a couple minutes. Now I want you to pay attention to this number, which consists of 114 digits. It takes me about a couple minutes to memorize this number. Then I can cite it forward, of course without looking at it, just from my memory. And I can also cite it backwards. And I can cite from any place you ask me, for example, from this place forward or back. From this place forward or back. It doesn't matter for me. And this is not a short-term memory. I can also cite this number even in a week, in a 2 weeks, or even in a month. And I was not born with this super memory. Actually, at the age 17, I learned these mnemonic techniques from the book. And at the age 19, I was teaching this technique to other people in my institute. There are different techniques exist in order to memorize different things. You cannot use single technique to memorize everything. For example, you're using different technique in order to memorize faces and names. So I cannot teach everything in one video. Instead, I'm going to teach one technique at a time, because you have to practice every technique for certain time in order to make it automatic. The technique that we are going to use today in order to memorize this table, this is HLA genes here and the diseases which are associated with these genes. And today's technique is going to use eidetic memory. Eidetic from Greek means imagination. So we have to use our imagination in order to memorize this table of abstract numbers and diseases. This technique is not hard, it's actually fun to learn. One more time, in this column we have HLA genes. HLA means human leukocyte antigens, which is a part of the human histocompatibility complex. So how we are going to memorize it? Gene B8 associated with Addison disease, myasthenia gravis, and Graves' disease. Just a year ago, it would be much harder for me to explain my technique, because how can I explain what's happened in my head? But now, with using AI techniques, I can generate images. So this is what my imagination tells me when I trying to associate B8 with these diseases. First of all, I see Graves here and Graves' disease, which tells me association with other word, which is grave or deadly disease. Hence, I imagine a person standing here and he is going to floor which is B8. You know, in Japan, in Chinese culture, fourth floor usually is not even shown on the display because it means death. And 8 is a multiple of 4, so it's easy for me to memorize that B8 is the name of the gene, which is associated with diseases, also which has some association with Graves. As you see, it is very easy to memorize B8 and the names of these diseases that they have a strong association. Now let's move to the next line, B27 and psoriatic arthritis, reactive arthritis, and I'm not sure if I pronounce this disease correctly, ankylosing spondylosis. And it doesn't matter, I still would memorize. I don't know what kind of your personal association with B27, but I have a strong association with bomber B27. So now, what is going to be association of this name of the gene with these diseases? As you see, arthritis here repeated twice. And arthritis usually may happen in multiple places throughout your body. Bomber has bombs which are all the same, and he also bombs at different places, damaging with the same type of bombs different cities and different blocks in the city. So for me, it is very strong association. Next one is DQ2, DQ8 gene and celiac disease. How we are going to memorize and associate celiac disease with DQ2, DQ8. First of all, what is a celiac disease? It is a chronic digestive and immune disorder that damages the small intestine. And this disease is triggered by eating food which contains gluten. So my imagination drew this picture. Thanks to AI, now I can visualize and show how my brain works. Thus, of course, it's not perfect because I asked to draw a Dairy Queen fast food restaurant, but this is what we see. Anyway, so DQ means Dairy Queen, and 2, I imagine 2 people standing, and they hold 8 cones of ice cream. And AI also failed here, only drawing 3, and the rest is on the background. But for me, funny thing is that gluten is contained in the cones itself, so these people may have severe side effects if they would eat this ice cream, including these cones. One more time, Dairy Queen, 2 people holding 8 cones of ice cream. So DQ2, DQ8. Next one, gene DR2 and multiple sclerosis. How we going to memorize this gene and disease? And this is what I imagine. For me, DR stands for the drive. Drive something with 2 wheels, or this is going to be bicycle. But as you see, this child sitting on the bicycle like on the wheelchair. In real life with multiple sclerosis, usually you would be sitting in a wheelchair and not going to ride 2-wheeled bicycle. And the more wild picture you imagine, the easier it's going to be to memorize such picture. Next one, DR3 and DM type 1, or in other words, diabetes type 1. So here's my picture. So DR3 stands for the 3 wheels. And here's a child who is sleeping. You cannot sleep on the bicycle, but you can sleep on the tricycle. And why this child is sleeping? Because with this type of disorder, you usually feel very tired and sleepy when you don't have enough sugar in your cells. It can be high level in your blood, but in your cells it's going to be low level. Next one, DR4 and rheumatoid arthritis. And here's a picture which I asked AI to generate for me. I asked to generate a child. It's of course not a child disease. Usually adult people have this disease, this disorder, usually after 50 or 60 years. Usually this arthritis would be seen on the hands, and you would see them swollen with knots. But as you see, AI didn't understood me and put a scarf with knots. But it's okay. It's also very easy to memorize. So child sitting in a regular vehicle, which is DR4, 4 wheels, and has arthritis and has a scarf around him with knots. And the last disease, and this is Hashimoto thyroiditis, DR5 gene specifies this genetic disorder. If there are going to be mutations in this gene, here's my picture. Hashimoto, this is Japanese last name, so I imagine a Japanese guy sitting in a vehicle DR5 with 5 wheels. For me, Japanese associated with crazy shows, weird shows, so I also associate that only Japanese may invent a vehicle with 5 wheels, so DR5. And Hashimoto thyroiditis. Now let's check how you were been able to memorize all these diseases and associate them with these names of the genes. I randomly shuffled diseases, so they now go in the different order. Now we have to recall what the name of the gene associated with each disease. So I see arthritis here, arthritis here. For me, it is Bomber 27. No problem to recall it at all. Let's check. Yes, B27. Next one, Gravis and Graves. And I recall guy standing in front of the elevator and there is B8 on top. So let's check. Yes, B8. Next one, DM type 1. Small boy sleeping in a tricycle. So DR3. Let's check. DR3. As soon as I see Hashimoto, this is DR5. A vehicle with 5 wheels. So let's check DR5. Next one, celiac disease, Dairy Queen. 2 guys standing in front of this fast food restaurant and holding 8 portions of ice cream. So DQ2, DQ8. Let's check. DQ2, DQ8. Next one, rheumatoid arthritis. A guy, a boy sitting in a car with 4 wheels, with a scarf around his neck with knots. So DR4. And the last one, multiple sclerosis. Usually children with such condition cannot ride a bicycle. So it is irony that, as you remember, there was a child who was sitting on the bicycle, but it was kind of resembling wheelchair. So DR2. As you see, you have been able to memorize this whole table with absolutely no effort. And even if in a week I'm going to ask you what disease associated with what gene, you would be able to recall and tell me exactly which name of the gene associated with which disease. And this is all for today. Subscribe and see you in the next video. Goodbye.